Anyway, new Supreme Court just ruled the 6-3 public school teachers and other staff can now lead students in prayer, significantly undermining the separation of church and state and overturning decades of established precedent. This is like just bad manners. It's BM. You're doing a fucking end zone dance for no goddamn reason whatsoever. You feel me? This is one of those fucking circumstances where, like, you didn't have to do this. You didn't have to. Who's this for? It's so marginal. You're just doing it because you're like, I could do it. We could get away with it. Anyway, make no mistake. There will be no fucking prayer mats allowed at schools, okay? If you think, oh, teacher, I need to fucking face the Kaaba. It's my, 1/5 of my daily prayers today. Yeah, that shit's not happening. Your teacher is not going to fucking pray with you. You know? Gonna start leading satanic chants at school now. Religion will never disappear unless we eliminate aging and become immortal. Death will always send humans finite organic brains into a frenzy trying to make up a fantasy where it continues to be conscious. Yeah. Oh, by the way, yeah, of course he lied. The Kennedy v. Bremerton. It seems notable that the majority and dissent aren't able to agree on the facts before them. To the majority, Kennedy was praying quietly during semi-private time. To the dissent, he was causing a disruption of school events. And of course he was causing a fucking disruption of school events. Here it is. Photos show players circled and kneeling around the coach. 5 members of the local clergy came from Bremerton to D.C. to back the school district, saying kids felt obliged to do what the coach is doing. Also, a lot of members of the majority are liars who perjured themselves under oath before the U.S. Senate, and in the testimony of the dissenters, to my knowledge, has stood the test of time. There is that too. Oh, man. They use separation as an argument in their ruling too. Absolutely insane. Justice Sotomayor dissenting as the conservative side with the coach. Conservative side with the coach in the public school prayer case. This decision does a disservice to schools and the young citizens they serve, as well as our nation's longstanding commitment to the separation of church and state. There is no separation of the church and state. These motherfuckers have been saying this is a Judeo-Christian country. Well, they've been saying this is a Christian country, but now they're saying this is a Judeo-Christian country for a long-ass fucking time. You know? Our dollar bill has "In God We Trust." Yeah, that's new though. All that God shit is like a Red Scare phenomena. Every part of every mention of fucking God in all of our in every aspect of like American life and American existence is a byproduct of 1950s Red Scare anti-communist propaganda. Everything that sucks in this country has come from anti-communist propaganda. I know people are going to say, Hasan, you're biased. You're a fucking godless commie freak, okay? And to them I say, who cares? It's still the truth, okay? Wherever you go, when you see anti-communists, when you see anti-socialists, they are always either A, aligning with fascists and Nazis, or B, straight up Nazis themselves, or C, doing a bunch of fucking Nazi shit. Under God was added to the Pledge of Allegiance in 1954, dude. Majority. Mr. Kennedy prayed during a period when school employees were free to speak with a friend, call for a reservation at a restaurant, check email, or attend to other personal matters. He offered his prayers quietly while his students were otherwise occupied. The dissent. Here's the photograph of that not being true. Room prior to the games before Kennedy was hired, but that Kennedy subsequently began leading those prayers too. Dude, I love I love the conservative SCOTUS justices being like, oh my God, what about the integrity? What about the integrity? Like John Roberts saying, what about the integrity of the Supreme Court? Meanwhile, like, they're just lying, dude. This is literally a fucking, and this is a touchdown dance, okay? And I don't mean that because, like, they literally are doing this on the football field, but this is basically just bad manners. You're teabagging a fucking lifeless corpse, okay? There is no reason. There's no reason to do this. It is a clear violation of the separation of church and state, okay? It's just completely saying, nope, public institutions, public office, doesn't matter. You can do these, like, weird fucking acts. I personally don't even give a shit. Ultimately, who cares? Oh, man, they're forcing you to do, he's doing prayer shit on the... It's just whack. It's just whack as fuck. And if your argument to that is, Hasan, it does matter. Are you kidding me? This shows once again that there is no separation of church and state in this country. I'm like, hello? Did you just come here from fucking China? Are you unaware of like how America has run for like the past, I mean, since its fucking inception, but certainly since the 50s? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, no, I know. We've been doing this. Hey, there was another decision that was significantly more impactful than this one that pretty much basically proved that it's all just like hyper religious attitudes that are unironically sanitized very successfully. I was thinking about this. I've been thinking about this a lot, actually. Remember the Anna Kasparian tweet that popped off about how, like, I don't care about your religion. I don't care about your religion. Like, I will defend your right to pray, but also you can't tell me what to do. You shouldn't be able to control my body and my choices that I make with my body. One thing that I've actually noticed is that Christians have been able to traffic their thoughts into the mainstream very successfully without actually showcasing the underlying premises that are rooted within Christianity. Now, what I mean by that is this, and this I'm moving back to the previous SCOTUS decision here, Roe v. Wade, okay? When we talk about Roe v. Wade nowadays, we never bring up religion. When conservatives are advocating for Roe v. Wade, for the most part, they're not like as forward about like how godly they are. They usually only talk, and the media certainly plays a role in this as well, they usually only talk about life. They say, this is a baby, this is a life, unconditionally. But the underlying premise of that ideology, or the underlying premise in that argument, is a false one, or at the very least, is an unconvincing one. The concept that life begins at conception, that premise is Christian. Other religions don't even have that same premise. It's just purely a Christian interpretation. But for some weird reason, we don't even have the fucking conversation about whether life begins at conception or not. We have already established it. We already act like, oh no, you're right, actually. And for some weird reason, that framing has overtaken the prior religious underpinnings. It's very, very weird. And I think partially it's because conservatives have recognized that promoting this on the basis of Christianity was actually not successful, because a lot of people would be like, okay, fuck Christianity, who gives a shit, right? They recognize that Christianity in and of itself is not as is not as popular or is not as accepted in a country that has a secular basis for its democratic organization, right? Secularism was an important part of our development, and it's still, relatively important when you think about the broader masses, especially when it comes to the government making decisions. Secularism and white supremacy. Christianity can often, pair up with white supremacy, and it does in reactionary politics, and it's in that way it can, merge its ideology and make its way into the mainstream. But it's not as it's not as popular. If all of these people that are abortion, the anti-abortion activists, okay, if all those people were running around fucking citing Bible verses and shit, you'd be like, these guys are freaks. But they don't do that as much anymore. What they do instead is talk about life as it's established. It's like, that's a life, that's a baby, that's a life, that's a baby, that's a life, that's a baby. And they've been able to successfully launder these talking points into the mainstream, so much so that motherfuckers are actually arguing whether or not it's okay to kill a baby. Who said it's a baby? And why do you think it's a baby? Why do you think it's a life? We need to go back to that. We need to go back to the fucking root of that argument and, like, you know, force these motherfuckers to talk about the Christian element of it. And when you think about it from a philosophical point of view, right, it's not established. Obviously, nothing is established under philosophy, but there is no basis. There is no basis for believing that a fertilized egg is automatically considered a life. There's no scientific basis for it, and it always goes back to Christianity. And it's ironic because even Ben Shapiro doesn't talk about it from the Christianity point of view. He's a great propagandizer who launders a lot of these talking points, right? That's why you rarely ever hear Ben Shapiro talk about it from a Christian point of view, but instead he says, it's science, it's established science, it's established science. You know? Think about that. It's really interesting. And I think they've done this right under our watchful eyes, okay? And now it almost feels established. Like they completely laundered this false premise and made it seem as though it's something that scientists believe, when that is not the case at all. A ban on abortion also means a ban on religious freedom, by the way. The idea that life begins at conception is a purely Christian one. The Supreme Court is a Christo-fascist institution. I would like to add that in this tweet that I'm specifically referring to the evangelical Christian, the driving force behind overturning Roe, as well as the driving force behind pushing a ban on abortion in the U.S. Many people have pointed out that Catholicism has also played a huge role in the fight against abortion, and y'all are 100% right. In the U.S., both evangelical Christianity and Catholicism are the two main driving forces behind the push for ban. No, I disagree. I don't agree with this. I don't think it is Catholics Catholics do not play as fundamentally a role in banning abortions as the white evangelical Protestants did. It was led by a fucking Catholic who recognized how to activate some of the more fucking rabid psychos. In other countries, Catholics lead this conversation against abortion and against a woman's choice. In the United States of America, it 100% is the white evangelical Protestants, straight up. I'm telling you. It is not even the fucking, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but it's not even the fucking Catholics. I mean, there's the Opus Dei psychos, but there's not that many of us in the U.S. You don't know many Catholics then? American Catholics are straight hogs? No, of course. Of course. There are always, dude, they're Christian. They're fundamentalists. Like, there's always going to be fucking fundies in there. Catholics were originally the ones who pushed against Roe, but then the evangelicals picked up the torch as a talking point to win the moral high ground? Yes. Catholics are no longer the driving force behind anti-abortion activism. I mean, there's Pew Center studies for this, by the way. I can't believe I'm defending Catholics right now, which I'm not, but don't misunderstand what I'm saying. But evangelicals on abortion.